Amanda. All right, let's get this party started. What do you say? Uh, it's a couple of minutes after 5 p.m. Pacific time. And for those of us in the know, that can only mean one thing. It's time for another episode of The Yard. Right now, in addition to broadcasting live on our Zoom channel, we're being seen on Facebook Live, on Twitter Live, on YouTube, and I believe on Instagram as well. We're very excited because we will soon, within a couple of weeks, also be appearing on tens of thousands of tablets inside of jails and prisons. Our brothers and sisters who are doing time are going to have access to Commissary Club, our social network and live entertainment that we're providing, as well as our employment services and job board. The Yard is part of Commissary Club, and Commissary Club is the first social network for 70 million Americans who have a criminal record. My name is Richard Bronson. I have a criminal record. I'm also the founder and CEO of Commissary Club, as well as 70 Million Jobs, which is the national employment platform for folks with records. As usual, I am joined by the normal cast of characters. I'm joined by my friend and teammate at Commissary Club, the rapper to the stars and entrepreneur extraordinaire, the one and only Divine. Hey, D, how are you, sir?
Good night, everybody. Thank you, Richard. I'm great.
Good to have you, D.
Great to be
And
back.
it's good to have you back. And of course, the tallest man in the room, the ex-LA Laker, NBA star, center, teammate of a young Kobe Bryant, one of the best basketball players ever to live, and soon to be Hall of Famer. We have the great Seth Sundberg. Hey, Seth.
Hey, Richard, this is getting just out of hand on like 9 different levels.
Hey, man.
I love it.
I'm very proud of you. You're my only NBA friend.
Yeah, I mean, the tall part was accurate for sure. Like the tallest guy.
They said, listen, Seth, the intro was a highlight. The intro was a highlight. Let him go.
Let him go. Going down from here, let's be honest.
There are more NBAers to come, Richard.
Okay. Of course, let's not forget the very fabulous Adrienne Hatter, who is also on our team, and she is the brains behind the operation. And as the great Groucho Marx said, that should give you some idea about the operation. But Adrienne is here pulling the strings. Before we get started, as I always do, I'd like to lay down just a couple of housekeeping items to keep in mind. And then I'll introduce our two great guests. Let's see. Number one, I love to give updates on the work we do because obviously we're focused on the formerly incarcerated and reentry writ large. And there's a lot going on in this space. So by extension, there's a lot going on with us. We have two businesses, essentially. We have an employment business and we have our social network, which includes Commissary Club. Our employment business was out of business, in mid-March when the coronavirus really hit. And companies fired all of our people and our business went pretty much to zero for about 14 or 15 months. I'm very happy to report that our business, employment-wise, has come roaring back, triple what it was before. We were successful in helping thousands of people get jobs, deserving men and women, incredibly meaningful, and we were actually making money doing it. But now, as the risk of the coronavirus has abated, and at the same time, companies are finding it incredibly challenging to staff up. They're seeking alternative or non-traditional recruiting channels, and all roads lead to us. We are the only organization that has the scale that exists nationally, that employs technology to integrate with these big companies. We are getting so much business, we don't know what to do with it. And we are rushing to hire people to handle it. Good for us, great for the population we serve. These folks desperately need a job, and we're really thrilled that that has come roaring back. On the community side, the social network side, I mentioned that we'll soon be in tens of thousands of jails and tablets in jails and prisons around the United States. And our reach initially be more than 250,000 people who are currently incarcerated. We recognize that this is a huge opportunity for us to connect with people early on, and hopefully, provide them with opportunities and a sense of what they can expect when they're released, and to be part of that reentry strategy. Every minute that folks with a record are on the street without a job, they're at risk of recidivating, and thereby just perpetuating this endless cycle of recidivism that is, to me, a national tragedy. So we're so excited to be available and also to provide content. Folks have lots of time on their hands. We aim to give them great stuff. We will be kicking off our launch along with our friends at Dream Chasers, which is Meek Mill's record label. Meek Mill is a prominent hip hop artist who's very involved with criminal justice reform. And we are working with him and the label that they belong to, which is Rock Nation, which is Jay-Z's label. And we have promotions going on whereby Rock Nation is looking to actually sign artists in prison and those who have been released through us, as well as utilize lyric ideas for Meek Mill's upcoming songs. So this is very, very exciting, and I think it'll be very, very cool and bring us a lot of attention and a lot of users on our app, and et cetera, et cetera. Last week, I reported that we received a very substantial investment from a fellow by the name of Darryl Finkton, who has a $1 billion impact investment fund. Today, he doubled it. So we are in great shape with money in the bank. So that's a major accomplishment, but more a major worry that is, put in the back burner for now. Let's get back to the yard. Our goal, like Commissary Club, is to connect people and for people to emerge as role models, to inspire others. And I certainly think there are a couple of guests here who can serve as role models and inspiration. Ultimately, we want to humanize those folks with records, like me and my our two hosts and our two guests. We're all human beings. We've made mistakes. Who among us hasn't? We try to simulate in a very sort of safe way, or at least describe graphically what it is like to be in prison. Everybody who goes to prison, depending on their sentence, depending on where they go, the experience is different. So no two experiences are the same. And we try to get a cross section of that. We try to essentially bring people out to the yard, which is that one place in prison where you can be a human being. You can get some fresh air, you can play ball, you can work out, but mostly you can connect with your friends, other human beings, without guards, without terrible doctors, without terrible food, where you can actually make believe that you have a life once again. We try to focus on what the prison experience is. So we don't really focus on how people got there or what they're doing now. At the end of our episode, we will talk about what our guests are up to, because they're both involved with some great stuff, and we want to make sure people know about it. But if you have questions or comments, we please ask you and invite you to share them. And if you'd like to be actually brought up and be part of the conversation, let Adrian know, but try to confine, you know, your comments and thoughts to the actual in-prison experience if you can. So without further ado, we do this every time. And for those of us who have been on the yard before, you're familiar. For those who haven't, I ask you just to sort of go along and trust me on this. If everyone could first, everybody had a tough day, let's everybody just take a deep breath and just let it out slowly and just relax for a minute and allow your imagination and your mind to sort of just go where it's going to go. And then I'm going to ask everybody just to close your eyes for a couple of moments and just let some air and oxygen and space come into your head. We try to paint a picture every episode of how easy it is to make a mistake, where a good person makes a bad decision and potentially it ends up ruining that person's life or that family's life or someone else's. It's so tenuous, it's so potential at all times. So here's a scenario that I don't think is played out quite yet, but I think we're going to be hearing a lot about this. So with your eyes closed, just imagine, if you will, you are a legitimate business owner. And whatever your business is, maybe you own a restaurant, maybe you supply restaurants, maybe you're a florist, or you have a dance studio or a travel company, whatever. The coronavirus hit, and it hit your company bad, really bad. And at first you'd figure, all right, we'll get through it, we'll tough it out. But the pandemic, if you remember, back in early 2020, it was only getting worse and worse. And, you know, landlord needs to get paid and your creditors are losing patience with you. You hear, like every business owner heard, that there was emergency federal assistance to be had. There are these PPP loans. There are these EID loans that are available. Hundreds of billions of dollars are being made available to businesses just like yours. So of course you're interested. The loans are under very, very forgiving terms. And of course, it's something you're going to pursue. You have no choice. So you put together all the necessary forms and get your documentation together. And, you know, all you hear is good things. The money is coming. It's flowing from the government fast so that people who need it get it right away. You know, you start thinking as you're filling out the form, is there some way, how do I, you know, really get as much money as, you know, I can get here, you know, and maybe you start stretching the truth a little bit, not much, you know, but let's face it, you've been paying taxes. You've been a good guy all these years. You know, you've been going through a very tough time. So, you know, maybe a little extra will help take off the edge of the stress you've been under. And lo and behold, the money comes through quickly and you get the money sooner than you would have ever expected. Then you hear about that there's another round coming. And of course, this is something you're going to want to do. You know, and the coronavirus is still raging. You need the money. So you once again submit an application, except this time, you know, it was so easy the first time. No one asked any questions. You fudge it a little more. You get a little more aggressive with your loan. Why not? You know, why not? Everybody's got to be doing that. So you get the second loan and everything is going fine, except one day in the mail, you get this official letter and it's from the Department of Justice. And they tell you that while doing a routine audit of your loans, they found some discrepancies that they want to discuss with you. You meet with them and on a Zoom call, and the meeting didn't go well. And now you're starting to worry a little bit. And you really start worrying a week later, early in the morning, when the FBI raids your home and raids your office. Now you've got a problem. So let's jump ahead 2 years from that. And you're waking up, you're in bed. And as you're waking up, you look around and it hits you. You're lying in a cot. And in this cot in front of you, you see a door, there's bars on it. And to your left, not 9 inches away, there's this stainless steel toilet that's connected to a stainless steel sink. That's what you've been sleeping next to. And on the other side of you, Someone else is waking up, except that this guy is coughing and he's having trouble breathing. And you've been sleeping next to him 9 inches away, breathing the same air. And God only knows what this guy is going through and what you may now soon be going through. And it hits you that you're in prison. And that's where you've been for the last year. And you're going to be there for another couple of years. And your life and the life of your family was inexorably, horribly changed on that day when you were filling out that loan document. And prison is terrible. It's unsafe, it's violent, the food is terrible, the medical care is worse, and the guards treat you like an animal, and sometimes that's kind of how you feel, except for that one time, once a day, when they let you out onto the yard. This big empty field where you're gonna get some fresh air, and where you're gonna find your friends, and you're gonna hang out, and you're gonna laugh, and you're gonna share, and if there's bad news, you'll hear about that too. And you can make believe, as I say, for that little short period of time, that you didn't fill out that form, you didn't disappoint your family, and that you're still a human being. So let me take you out to the yard right now. Everybody, please open your eyes. There's there's two guys I want you to meet, who I think you're gonna like. One happens to be a friend of mine who I've known for several years. His name is Jeff Grant. The story I just told, coincidentally, is strikingly similar to the story Jeff would tell about his own problems that led him to prison about 20 years ago. Following 9/11, Jeff's legal practice took a hit. He overdid it on his loan docs, and he got into legal hot water, and that changed everything. In prison, he became a born-again Christian. He's now an ordained minister, and he just recently received his law license back, so he can now practice law once again. And he has made a name for himself in working with white-collar offenders, particularly helping them with their reentry. Jeff, my friend, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Richard. I got to tell you, I was getting a little sick while you were doing that meditation. And because I had a feeling it was targeted towards me. But
it could be me too, brother.
I know. I feel that way every week when I listen to you, to be honest.
All right, let me make sure we bring Craig into the picture. Joining Jeff is Craig Stanlin. Craig calls himself a reinvention architect, which is very, very interesting. Craig also committed a financial crime that landed him in prison. Like me, like Jeff, like Seth, like Divine, Craig lost pretty much everything through that whole experience. Everything he owned, he lost money, he lost friends, he lost family, and ultimately his freedom. Also, like all of us, through this journey, he found himself. And through finding himself, he was inspired to write what turned out to be a best-selling book. It's called Blank Canvas: How I Reinvented My Life After Prison. Now he helps people reinvent themselves as well. Craig, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Richard, thank you so much for having me on. When you were going through that meditation, there were some things that definitely resonated with me where it hurt. It hurt a little bit. Some things, I'll be honest, I mean, my experience, I couldn't resonate with some of it, but some of it, man, it hurt.
Yeah. And I'm not sure, for me, it's 18 years ago. I don't know. I'm kind of accepting the fact that it's always going to hurt. But let's just, get this started here. And this is not an interview. And, you can ask questions, Jeff and Craig, and, certainly Devon and Seth will jump in there. But let's start with you, Jeff, because we were talking before we went on how you and I both led sort of, privileged lives of, opulence and drugs and fancy cars and wealth and conspicuous consumption. And then it all came to a crashing end. Do you remember that moment, Jeff, when you took that first step into prison?
Oh yeah, sure, of course. I had no idea that I was going to be handcuffed. Everything I'd read, I mean, it's not like now where there's a lot of information on the internet. I mean, this was 2006. It was on Easter Sunday of 2006. So there's a little foreshadowing of where my life was going to head. And a friend drove me out to Pennsylvania to Allenwood Low Security Correctional Institution. And there was a waiting room, like, it looked like a train station, or it looked maybe like it was a kind of a normal looking room. I'd never been in anything like that before. And after about 15 minutes, they asked my friend to leave, and I hugged them goodbye. And there was a door where they escorted me through. And the minute I got on the other side of the door, they spun me around and slapped cuffs on me. And it was like, why didn't this make sense? But why didn't I expect it? And then I went up to there was a glass booth there with a clerk behind the booth, actually, I guess a guard. I don't remember R&D that well going in. I was kind of in trauma, right? And they asked me for my register number. And I had no idea what that was. I mean, now everyone we talk to, you get a lot of information before you go in.
Yeah,
but they asked me my register number. I had no idea what they were talking about. So the dude, what he does is on a piece of masking tape, he writes down my register number, and they put it right on my clothes. And when I got to R&D, which was only a few steps away, I wound up having to strip, and they did the cavity searches and everything. And I'm standing there naked on Easter Sunday, and there's nobody there to do an intake because it's Easter Sunday.
Wow.
So the head lieutenant had to come and do the intake. So he's standing there with a clipboard, and this is, the head lieutenant runs the compound, right? So he's standing there with a clipboard, and he says to me, "Are you the lawyer?" And I'm naked, right?
You should have been like, "Yes, I'm waiting for my client."
And I said exactly the right thing, but I didn't know it that I was going to say. I said to him, "No, but I used to be."
Right.
And which is exactly the right answer.
Right.
That's a smart answer.
Right. But I didn't know. I was just trying to be truthful because and from that moment on, he was actually human. It was not this foreboding. I mean, I was still naked, but it was a pretty. We wound up having a conversation, and he told me like what to do or not to do to stay out of trouble. Don't be getting involved in other people's legal issues. Don't be taking anything of value from any other. He said, no max. Right. He said,
Take him back and get a smack.
So Divine, he said to me, "I hope you're not thinking of making money on other inmates."
Right.
And I'm looking at him going, that's about the last thing that I would consider doing.
Can't wait to collect all my stamps.
I'm gonna catch another charge. My first year here.
All
I
right.
didn't even know what he was talking about.
All right. So one thing though.
How exactly am I going to do that?
One thing that I read that you were talking about when you were interviewed once, which was one of my first memories and reactions, was I was led to my housing unit. I've spoken about this before, and I was hit when they opened the door with this incredible smell that I just never smelt in my life.
The story never gets old.
As atrocious and heinous as this smell. It was unworldly. It was ungodly. And when I asked, "What the fuck is that?" they go, that's mackerel. And I said, "What is mackerel?" what, I mean, I heard the answer, but I have no idea what does that even mean? And they go, the fish. And I'm going, okay, what does that mean? Is there like a tank of mackerel in here that I'm going to be living with?
Fishing is part of rehabilitation, Richard.
Right.
It's the
It's
thing that
good
they're
for
doing.
you.
It's all part of the game, baby. It's all part of the game.
So they go, no, so then I was finally learned that mackerel is the unit of barter. It's canned mackerel, like there's canned tuna. Well, there's actually canned mackerel. When you open it up, it's not hard to understand why it never became as popular as canned tuna, but it's high in protein, and guys who work out at the weight pile like to eat high protein food, and they use these cans of mackerel, 2 cans for a haircut, 1 can for the guy to make your bed all week, that sort of thing. So they're called Mac, 2 Mac, 1 Mac. So Craig, I need to ask you the same question too. Do you recall that moment when your life was color and then you took that one step and it sort of went to black and white? You know, when you made that first entree into prison?
So it was, I mean, very similar to Jeff in the beginning of his story. You know, you go into the waiting room, and I'm sitting there with she's my ex-wife, but we're sitting there, and the guard calls my name, Stanlin, say goodbye, let's go. And I go through a metal detector. It's just barking out the orders at me, you know, belt off, shoes off, wallet, boom, boom, boom. And I'm just rushing through. I'm rushing to put everything back on. It's like going through the airport, but I'm super rushed. And we come up to this door, and the guard goes on the radio, you know, on his shoulder, and he's like, unlock A1, prisoner move. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I looked to my right and I looked to my left, and I was like, who's the prisoner? Where is it?
If you have to ask, you're the one.
Yo, that's Craig. That's classic. That's classic.
That's a good one.
I said, oh,
that's
shit.
classic.
I said, that's me. And we walk. It brought us outside. And I went to Otisville Federal Prison. I went to the camp, but you check in at the museum. So
Otisville.
Yeah. So you go, you know, outside. And I remember looking out the fence that 5 minutes ago, I was on the good side of the fence. And I just remember going, I'm on the wrong side of the fence. I'm just on the wrong side.
And that's when it hit you, right?
That's when it hit me. But I'll tell you one other story where it really hit me. We did the medical intake, and I walk into a little room, and there's a PA sitting there. She's doing something on her desk. She pays me no attention. I sit down. I'm looking around the room, and she starts administering, you know, the basic tests. She weighs me. She does the blood pressure, does the resting heart rate, and then pulls out a needle and says that she's going to be doing a TB test. I was like, okay, you know, no big deal. And she unpacks the needle. She cleans my, you know, elbow, the crease of my elbow. As she's doing that, the needle rolls off the desk, falls to the floor, bounces around a few times, ends up like underneath her chair. And she picks it up, she puts it on the desk, goes back to cleaning the crease in my arm. And I looked at her and I said, I'm sorry, but are you going to clean that or get a new one because it fell on the floor? You would have thought I pissed in her cereal. She looked at me with just laser death eyes and said no, and just shot it right into my arm.
Oh,
that's when it hit me.
Oh yeah, you're in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Medical care is a
I need a clarification. I'm asking you guys, you know, you're smart. Maybe you know the answer, or maybe you or Seth know, or Divine know. But this attention to tuberculosis, has there been an outbreak of tuberculosis, particularly in prison, that I haven't heard of? Who knows about that?
someone got sued.
Ching, baby.
Someone got sued for something. You know, somebody got sued for something.
What is the ching, D? What does that mean?
Well, they got to buy the test. They got to buy the test.
Somebody got the tuberculosis.
They got to say that the environment is safe from tuberculosis. It's cleanly. Come on, money gets passed through the federal system so crazy. I mean, let's think about it. Let's think about Unicor. It's another great example.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
Tell people what Unicor is, and not everybody doesn't know.
Unicor is the federal prisons industry. much like a Walmart, if you would. It's actually publicly traded, I believe. Anyway, Unicore is where you go. You basically build furniture and build goods from outside, from public sectors, and you sell it to actually public and private sectors in the world. I worked there for like $100 a month, I believe.
It's sort of like Cool
that's
Hand
legit.
Luke, the movie, where
Yeah.
where the prison contracts with outside businesses to essentially get slave labor,
Exactly, yeah.
to build things, to make beds, to stuff mattresses,
We
do all kinds of stuff
Oh,
like
not essentially get slave labor, actually get slave labor.
Yeah.
that.
we did upfitting of border patrol vehicles in the Unicore that I worked in for a while, and it was like, this is strange. Like,
It's
you know,
fun.
like what if you know, it's just a weird dynamic. Hey,
Yeah,
but
we did U.S. mail bags.
oh yeah, for sure. I want to do a quick shout out to everybody that is currently down. I know they're not watching this live, but they will be, and just want you
Yeah, we
men
love
and
you,
women
man.
to know, yeah, we love you. I mean, we joke a lot here, you know, about the experience, because we know the shit that you're going through. We know, you know, and if we don't joke and laugh and all that, we'll cry. And, you know, like Richard said, it's been 18 years and it still hurts and all that, but that's why we're all here. We're all, you know, we're with you in spirit for sure. When you get out, we'll be here, you know, physically, and you know, we just want to give you a shout out.
Yeah, that's
Shout
great,
out.
Jeff. It's great
My
that
people
you,
in the Bing, hold it down.
That's beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah,
stuff.
and-
Stay strong, stay positive.
and Divine, my friend Divine and I drink to your swift release
I drink my
and
water.
successful reentry.
Yes,
So you can join us
successful
on
reentry
the
is
yard.
key.
Absolutely.
You're all invited to be guests.
You have to understand, people have been formerly incarcerated, system impacted. We have so much potential. It's just unlocked. And when you get home, you deserve to give yourself the chance to show the world what you possess. And I know that firsthand, because I'm somebody who had great talents and great gifts and skills. I use my intelligence the wrong way. But I was blessed with a second chance, maybe a third chance and a fourth chance. But nevertheless, I finally overcame that negative psychological cycle of recidivism. I found Richard, I found Seth, I found Commissary Club, I found 70 million jobs. And now my life is on a whole new trajectory, and we believe in you.
Yeah.
So please
Beautiful.
stay strong,
Why do
stay
you
positive,
think-
get home.
Why do you think we deserve it though, Divine? I mean, we you know, we did something wrong. Why do we deserve it?
I mean, I think the human spirit is always redeemable, man. It's just what it is, right? It's just what it is. We're all human. We all make errors. We're gonna make errors, no matter what. Small, big, whatever it is. Society may judge you by them. People may judge you by them. But at the end of the day, we're human. And I feel that human transformation is always possible, right? It's always possible. And
on.
hope and faith, all these spiritual gifts that we possess as human beings that we don't really consider. We need to tap into those and change our lives. And everybody deserves that chance to do that.
Yeah,
So that's-
people who've been to prison don't deserve any better chance than anyone else. The point is that we don't deserve any worse chance than anyone
Agreed.
else.
Exactly.
That's the
Exactly.
point. Yeah.
So let me,
Exactly.
all right, okay, well, this sort of opens something. I know, Craig, you want to say something. Well, let me answer this though. Have you went to prison? I'm sure I know I felt incredibly ashamed and guilty, and how many people I let down. When you got to prison, did you start forgiving yourself, Craig?
It took a long time. That's a great question. I was consumed with shame. I was absolutely consumed with shame. I was thinking about killing myself because of the damage that I did. You know, it was not losing the things, realizing how stupid the things were, but the relationships. My wife left me, you know, just so consumed with that. And it wasn't until like I had a pretty major epiphany where I realized I had to start the process of forgiving myself. And that was a real journey. And
How
that
did
was
that
one
happen?
of the biggest turning points.
How did that epiphany occur?
That epiphany was when I was at my rock bottom, thinking about, you know, how can I kill myself? My resources are really limited in prison, but how can I kill myself? And I can't talk to anybody. You guys know, you mentioned suicide in prison, you're going to get locked in solitary, and that scared the hell out of me. So I just bottled this up for months and months, and it just kept on getting worse and worse. finally my best friend says he's coming for a visit. And, you know, I was like, oh, I can talk to him. Visits aren't monitored. I can explain what I'm feeling inside. I can get this off my chest. And we go into the visiting room and we sit down and I'm ready to let it all out. I'm ready just to unload. And my best friend of 30 plus years, he beats me to the punch. His life's a mess. He's getting a divorce. He's got work issues. He's got money issues. And there's just this sad eyes. And I realized at that moment that I had worth outside of every single thing that I had always thought made me worthy, that I had value as a human being, as just being a friend. My buddy could have gone to his brother's house, which was a couple houses away, as opposed to drive to 2 hours to come to prison. He needed me.
Yeah.
And that was the moment where it really turned it around. And that's when I started rebuilding. And forgiveness came after that, but it took a while.
That's amazing.
Richard, Craig and I know each other before he went to prison because we had already started our ministry, for people prosecuted for white collar crimes and their families. We'd already started our ministry by then. And a mutual friend told Craig to give me a call. And we both, at the time, Craig was living in Brooklyn, I think Greenpoint at the time. But,
no, I was in Connecticut.
Oh, you were? So
yeah, I was in Connecticut.
So he and his wife came over our house, came over to live in my house. And he was the first person who I administered to in person since I became a minister.
Wow.
And so it's kind of a weird thing that to be around long enough where I worked with someone beforehand and then through prison, and now he's back. What are you back? 5 years, Craig? 6 years?
Yeah. 5 years. Yeah. What is it? 5 years. 5 years.
And I have to say, okay.
And so like we have this richness of a relationship that isn't just like founded like, I mean, you know the buddies that you meet in prison. They something really tight happens there.
All right, so let's talk about that. So you both come to prison. There's a period of time inevitably that anyone goes through of adjustment. You had built in all these fears of what prison is going to be like. Is it violent? Am I going to be raped? Is it like on that TV show Oz? Is that what lies ahead? But then you start to realize, okay, I can do this. And as long as I'm smart, I can stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
And then you start meeting some people and you start connecting with some people. Jeff, did you make friends in prison? I would imagine you were, you could do that pretty easily. You're affable, you're friendly, you're funny, and you're a good guy. Did people recognize that in you?
Well, I was quiet. I had been this very loud, gregarious guy. I was, people must have thought I was crazy the way I was spending money but when I got there, I was like, I got much smaller. Did I ever tell you I was in prison with Mark Hanna? Did I tell you that?
Right, but that's probably not something that's going to mean anything to anybody else but me. So well,
Matthew McConaughey played him in the Wolf of Wall Street movie. That's how they'll know.
All right. Okay, well, let's keep going.
So at any rate, so I got there, and I'm not myself. I'm not myself, but I'm older than most of the guys there. I'm probably 40 pounds heavier than I am right now because I put on a lot of weight with anxiety going in. And I had a couple of cellies in my cube, and they were trying to give me the way to behave, but I didn't really understand all that. What I did mostly was try to keep it to myself. So the first day I was able to go to rec. I go to rec. I walk across because we had controlled movements in the low.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we all do in federal prison.
Yeah, right. But guys in camp don't have controlled movements.
That's not true.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well, we had
a little bit more freedom. Yeah, a little bit more.
Yeah, a little more freedom, right?
Yeah.
So
it was like a swinging disco where I was.
Stick
So
around this place for a while.
so I go to rec. I'm 3 days in. 3 days in, I go to rec, and it's like 6:30 in the morning. So I'm an early guy, and I go there, and I'm looking at this weight stack, and it looks like a prison movie, right? Like what the hell, Like it looked just, but there was
The
no
only
one.
difference is not a movie.
Right, exactly. But there's no
Real
one
life.
there. There's no one there, but I sit down on a weight bench, and there's an Olympic bar on top of me, and I'm not even sure I could lift the Olympic bar. What is it, like 40 pounds? I don't even know if I can lift it. I'm so out of shape. What?
45, yeah.
Oh,
45.
I don't even know, right? So I'm lying there, and this bar is over my head, and before I do anything, the shadow comes over my face, this huge shadow. And it's the biggest,
Not Bubba.
the biggest guy I'd ever seen in my life. And he's bent at the waist. And it's like the scene from Top Gun where the two planes come together. His nose comes down to my nose, and he smiles. And he says to me, "Are you new around here?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Why don't you come see me after your workout?"
Whoa.
And
Damn.
and I didn't even see him there. You know what I mean? I thought I was the only one there.
Yeah, Bubba
So-
stays in the shadows. You gotta be careful.
So I'm telling you, one lift, I couldn't even do it. I put it down, and now I'm scared to death. So I go over to him, and he said to me, "Are you going to be here every morning?" And I said, "I don't know, I guess." And he said, "Why don't you go talk to your cellie and come back and talk to me tomorrow?" So at the next move, I go across back to my unit, and my cellie's waking up. And I told him what happened. And I said, what's with the guy looking over me with the face? And he said to me, "Well, he owns that bar."
Ooh.
And I said, "What do you mean?" He owns the bar. He goes, "You can't work out in his bar unless you pay."
Wow.
And this is like the first moment.
He knew you was new.
Oh my, and he wasn't going to talk to me about it because he doesn't know if I'm a rat, right? So he says, "Go talk to your cellie." So that's when I learned about cars, and that's when I learned about,
Yo, the car thing, that thing came in later on. When I was first in, I didn't know about cars and all that. I mean, there was people that affiliated with just their kind, if you would.
yeah,
The Italians, the blacks, Asians, so forth and so on. But we would never label them cars. But later on, that language developed inside
Yeah.
the prison.
yeah. But that's when I learned that anything I want to do in prison, I got to pay for. I want to get a haircut, you got to pay. You want to get
Like
anything,
3 max haircut.
whatever.
So that really, Craig, that raises the issue. Depending on where you are, depending on the level of security, depending on who you are, different people meet all kinds of scary situations that they better get wise to quickly. Many prisons, there's a racial undertone to everything, where you eat, who you hang out with, who you don't mess with. I'm sure you had fear and anticipation and dread about all this, but did you have any direct interaction in any scary situations relating to any of that?
I have to say, Jeff really helped me out when we met before I went in. So I had a lot. I really knew what to do when I got there. But before I met Jeff, so I'm 5'4", and I lost a ton of weight from stress. Jeff put on 40 pounds. I lost 30 pounds. I checked in at 109 pounds.
Wow.
6 pounds less than
I ate that for lunch.
Fighting weight.
It's my leg.
Like, yeah, exactly.
The turkey leg I ate.
This is like the only time that I'm going to be eye level with Seth. But so I was, before I met Jeff, I thought I was going to the place like you see on Oz.
Right.
I was like, I'm 5'4", 110 pounds. I'm going to get freaking killed. And then
And
Jeff
other
told me you're
things.
going to probably go to a camp.
It's date night every
You're gonna
day
go
for you.
Human
Right.
toothpicks.
Right all day.
Holy shit.
But I get there and I realize I'm going to be totally safe. I was going to be completely and utterly safe. I didn't have to worry about any of that. And I can't tell you how grateful I am. And my gym experience was the exact opposite of Jeff's. I'm a personal trainer when I was in my 20s, and people found that out pretty quickly. So one of the guys in there, he ran basically the Russians, and he said, you know, you work through me, I'll pay you, and I'll set you up with clients. I had a full client roster.
Wow.
So I was in and out of that gym all the time, training people.
He's working out for the Russians. What the hell? Only in federal prison.
They had stars on their knees, right?
Oh my God.
You know, it's very funny. It comes as a surprise to many people, but so many people who break laws are incredibly entrepreneurial. And the only difference between them and Mark Zuckerberg, you know, and Stanford versus the street where they got the education in is just the world that they were born into. And it's pretty interchangeable. And, you know, where I was, you know, and among my friends in prison, all we did all day and all night and at meals was scheming about other things we could be doing and businesses and opportunities and who we met who could, you know, do this and that. And how can we make money now? And how can we make money? And I got a friend on the outside and I got to give him a signal so that we can do this or that, whatever.
I mean,
you were up, you saw that, Divine, of course.
yeah. I mean, if you think about, especially federal prison,
federal
majority of the crimes committed are based on money, right?
Yes.
Everybody's trying to get money and make money.
Drugs.
Yeah, well, they're selling drugs, making money, extortion, making money. However you put it together, it's all financial crimes in some form or fashion, right? It's all about how you get to that money. But like this is the power of Commissary Club, that you can have two guests that have connected with each other prior to even coming on here. So one of the things we really cherish on with Commissary Club is building community and bringing people together who have been formerly incarcerated and giving them resources and ability to have successful reentry, to change their lives, to better themselves, whether it's through jobs, whether it's through connections with other people, networking. So that's the power of Commissary Club. We're seeing this live right now in real time.
Yeah, and like Seth pointed out, soon we'll be talking to people, and Jeff and Craig, you'd be talking to people in prison while you're talking to us and everybody else who's watching.
Right.
And the idea being, you know, let's help a brother out, you know, hook them up, you know, bridge that connection gap.
Yeah.
And Craig mentioned this earlier. I want to shoot back to this for a second, because this isn't something that we talk about. We've talked about, I think, before on the yard. But I mean, you know, you talk about like coming to that point where you're like, all right, I'm done. Like I'm gonna off myself. I'm gonna kill myself, and you know, it's like that's a better route than dealing with what is in front of me, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is important for people to. I mean, obviously you didn't. Obviously you wrestled through that. Obviously you can't ask for help in that scenario from the structure and the system that you're in, right? But like, you know, I went through it in when I did my first year in county jail, right? And I go, oh no, I'm gonna go this direction, and then I saw somebody do it, and I was like, kill themselves.
Oh.
And in the pod next to us, and we had the plexiglass, and a guy took a pencil and jammed his wrist on both wrists and just bled out. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. You know, I got to figure out another way. And that was kind of the shock and awe, you know, thing that I went through. And that, what was it that, like, how did you process that? How did you get to the point where you're like, okay, that's not the right option. This over here, I'm going to go through this or whatever. What was your process to get through that?
It was that visit with my friend, knowing that I had value, and then also coming to the conclusion that suicide is an extremely permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to get out. I lost everything, but I know I could get some things back. And now that I connected with what's really important, like family and friends and choice and freedom, you know, I could start really connecting with those. That's what really, just realizing how permanent it was for something that was temporary. That was the big change for me.
You know, one of our friends, a friend of the yard, is our friend Craig, who is here and joins us and who's here generally every week. And we've had him as a guest and we're graced by his presence all the time. And he always has incredibly powerful, insightful, and soulful comments that he makes. And he said something in the chat section here that I think deserves amplification. And he mentions, just to paraphrase him, that whatever our experiences are, they're very, very different depending on where you are, what sort of
Yeah.
prison you're in, and specifically the security level. And Craig, Craig, 30 years, was that your sentence? I mean, is that how much time you served? A whole 20, how many? 22 years? 32 years. 2 years. Two. What's the second?
Warmer.
Craig, I see the number 2. What's before or after that?
20 years? I think it's 20.
20 years. Craig did 20 years. Believe it or not, Craig did 20 years. He had a life sentence. Yes. You would think maybe he killed like 11 people. No. Craig was in there for marijuana offenses. That's what Craig was sentenced for. And he wasn't even doing, Craig used to lease tractor trailers, and he had a client who was shipping lots of pot, tons of pot. And Craig got, of course, caught up in that whole thing. And Craig received a lifetime sentence for it. Craig was given a pardon by the Trump administration, and he was let out not that long ago. And ultimately, they did away with his sentence. It was commuted, and now Craig is out there and doing great work. But he points out, at a high security facility, life is very, very different. And their guards and inmates are both in their own private hell. You yell at guards, and guards, they have a lifetime sentence too. So, we don't mean to suggest by anything we're talking about that our experience is the experience of everybody. Everybody has their own, everybody goes through their own, hell in prison, whatever your sentence is. Craig is talking about the existential challenges that he faced that were just as real to him as anything else. So, Craig, we're so happy that you came out of it. What did you learn in prison, that informed your later, awarenesses? What got you through it? The fact that your friend came asking you for advice, was that it?
That was the first step. And then after that was practicing acceptance. It was just
Acceptance
sitting in the
of what?
prison library.
Acceptance of your situation?
Acceptance of my situation, of reality, because I was sitting there, just living in the past, regretting the choices that I made, wishing that I was home, wishing I was with my wife who had already told me she was leaving me, just wishing, and it just hit me. And I just started writing. I said, I accept that I'm a felon. I accept that I made the choices that I made. I accept that I'm in prison. I wrote about a page worth of acceptance, and it hurt like hell to write it. Didn't feel good. These were not comfortable truths, but they were truths. They were reality. That. And when I took a deep breath when I was done, and I said, I feel free inside prison. I said, I have a baseline, a starting line. It may suck, but I have a place to start over. And that acceptance was huge. And then it led me into accepting responsibility. That led me into accepting choice. And those were the first 3 steps I really took that got me through.
Craig, is it safe to say that you spirituality played a part in your transformation?
That's a very insightful call. Absolutely. I started meditating in prison.
I can sense it. I can hear it as you relay this transformation you had. I just sense some form of spirituality, higher power, religion, something played a part in that.
it was the great call. It was the meditation. It was practicing gratitude. You know, even in prison, I could find something to be grateful for. Even if it was, I got the mixture of my coffee and powdered cream good that morning, and the coffee tasted good. I'd be like, I'm grateful.
It was heavenly.
That's not the easiest thing to do, right? I mean,
Right.
getting that blend.
Craig wasn't hooked up in the kitchen too well.
Yeah.
Hey,
Seth was well
I
connected,
worked
and so
in the
was Richard.
Yeah.
I apologize for keeping coming back to this, but I feel an obligation, you know, and again, from our friend Craig, who often is a great beacon for us.
The oracle.
Craig points out that, you know, that I live in California. If I walk down the street where I live, there are beautiful stores that are selling cannabis. It's like walking into Neiman Marcus. They're just beautiful. They're like an Apple store selling cannabis, because in California it's decriminalized. And yet, there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, excuse me, of men and women who walk around with a record relating to possession or selling cannabis, and they have that stigma, and they can't vote, and they can't get a place to live, and and they can't get a job, most importantly. And there are still people in prison who have long sentences for something that has become glamorous in certain parts of the country, and yet they are rotting away. They are in danger of catching coronavirus and dying, and this is what their life is all about. Craig is involved in an organization, the Last Prisoner Project, that is working to end all of that immediately. And that's something you all should know about if you don't already, but it does great work. It's obscene, and it's an irony of the most bitter, grotesque nature that people should be still rotting away in prison for something like this. You know, that as a society, half of our country has already said it's not only not criminal, but it's okay. And Craig works very hard now. Like many people who leave prison, they don't walk away for it. They actually are continuing their work to make things better. So yet another reason why I'm a big fan of Craig's and admire him.
You know, Richard, I'm glad you brought up drugs, because I would say that the greatest influence I had in getting through prison was the fact that when I went to prison, I was almost 4 years sober. So, you know, I had to kick a 10-year prescription opioid habit.
Wow.
And then I came into AA, and by the time I'd gone to prison, I'd been to 3,000 meetings. So, you know, if anyone's going through the early stages of this, you know, what I would tell them is that, you know, that sobriety is a superpower, you know, and I'm not trying to preach. I'm just telling you my experience, that to walk in as a sober man, to walk into prison as a sober man, and having taken care of my business and taken care of my family, and have put my affairs in order. Not a lot of people do that. There's people getting stoned or drunk right up to the prison door.
Yeah.
And so
It's a bit harder.
Yep. And actually on my first or second day in prison, I'm in the communal toilet, and I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting on the toilet, and there's a drop ceiling, and a panel opens up from the drop ceiling, and there's a guy up in the ceiling. It's a guy up there, and I'm sitting on the toilet, and it's a guy up there, and it's like, what do you do? I waved. He waved to me, right? And he waved to me, but the panel is kind of like half in the toilet and half out of the toilet, and what he has is this big contractor bag, and in the contractor bag is hooch.
Yeah.
but
Yeah, you gotta be kidding me, yo.
no, I didn't know. I didn't know, right?
So
So
the sailing, man, come on, man.
no, so they shove it up in they shove it to ferment up in the ceiling in the bathroom.
Yeah,
'Cause that's where the
exactly.
drop ceiling is. So they're handing it down to some guy who's on the other side of the door, and they're all going to get drunk. And I had a lot of opportunities to get drunk or get stoned in prison. And I wound up going to AA in prison and NA in prison. And I met a lot of guys in prison, out of 1,500 basically drug dealers who were on that pound. 30 of them were in the AA room. And of those guys in there, when I first went into that AA room, not one of those guys had spent one day clean on the street. So they had all stopped while they were in prison.
Yeah, it's a quick detox.
Right. And they had so I didn't know how to stay straight in prison. I had no experience, but they didn't know how to stay straight on the street. So it was really interesting. There were guys who came along later, but on my first day, there was nobody who had spent one day straight. It's like a real wake-up call, because I'd never been around that kind of an environment before, and so that's a real in-prison experience. That's the real deal.
I got a question for you, Jeff, real quick. I know you were an attorney. You were an attorney before you went to prison and all that. So did you try to play the jailhouse lawyer at any point?
Gonna ask the same thing.
No. What happened is that word got around.
There's a lot of jailhouse lawyers in the federal, especially federal prison.
I didn't
They'll get you out for like 20 mackerel.
I didn't do 2255 for anybody.
2255s, of course, all day.
Yeah, I was corporate counsel. That was
The
great.
hottest commodity in 2055.
I was corporate counsel. That was great. If they wanted to do a merger and acquisition, I was all set.
You was there. You the guy.
No, but what happened was word got around that I'd been a lawyer.
Right.
And so
As it always does.
Right, of course, everything gets around, right? So I'm minding my business, just walking the track, because I walk the track. I wind up
Always
walking,
minding your business.
right,
Yep,
minding my
good thing.
business. And the shot caller comes up to me, and he says to me, and he comes up to me, or he's standing. As I'm around in the corner, he's standing there, right? And he kind of motions me over, and he says to me, "So I heard you're okay." And I just nod, because you don't say a word, right?
Right.
I just nod.
Yeah, after the shot caller.
Nope. I just nod. And he says, "All right then." And he walks away. The next day, while I'm walking the track, people are coming up to me to ask me legal questions. Right. But until the shot callers decided I was okay, nobody came near
We
me.
didn't even talk to you. Right.
Nope.
Got it.
But and the thing I found out which informed everything I did after the ministry, getting my law license back, everything else, was that the guys in there are real people. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely.
They have like legal problems. They got partners on the outside who are ripping them off. They got wives who are suing them for divorce. They got bankruptcy issues.
You name it, it's happening. You name it, it's happening.
But nobody pays any attention to that stuff. It's like, you think of someone who's going to jail, you think criminal law.
Yeah, life goes on, well, in or out. Craig, along those lines, Jeff, you mentioned about family and wives and whatever. You mentioned, and forgive me for bringing this up, and if you don't want to talk about it, well, tough, you got to. You
On the yard.
Did you learn that your wife was leaving you while you were in prison?
Talking to Craig or me?
Craig.
It was December 22nd in the prison visiting room.
Right.
And I could see something in her eyes, and I just kept pushing and I just had that bad feeling. And she just said, "I'm leaving you."
How long had you been married?
She said, "I wanted to support." We have 4 years.
Okay. Do you have any kids?
No kids. We're actually, fortunate in that regard that there weren't, but that was really when things started to go super downhill. Just, hearing the pain in her voice and seeing the pain in her eyes. She didn't want to tell me before Christmas. I was the one who pushed. I knew there was something there. She said, I really wanted to wait until after Christmas.
You can feel it, man.
But
You can see it. You can hear it. You can feel it.
You just know it, right? I mean,
Right.
I just knew it.
But you see, here's the thing. Craig had come over my house, you know, and Craig had come over my house regularly, and so did his wife. So I know his wife.
Yeah.
And
All
my
right,
wife.
Jeff, just hold on. I just want to hear Craig, what he, as interesting as your comment's going to be, for sure. Tell me, it's visiting day, Craig, and finally you sort of pull it out of her. She says what? What does she say to you?
She said, I'm leaving you. Tears in her eyes, just heartbreak in her voice. I'm
Were you
leaving you.
expecting this?
And, you know, it was like the sword of Damocles, you know, just hanging by the thread. I felt that it was on the horizon, and there was no way that I could stop it. There was no way I could figure out how to stop it, and then just uttered those words. And it was so surreal because she said it, and then we both just started crying. And I'm trying not to cry. I don't want to be the guy crying in prison. You know, I don't want to do that, but it's hard not to. Kind of went to a corner, so we were tucked away from everybody. And we actually, I mean, this is great. We started making out. It was just like the final kiss.
The last kiss,
you know,
goodnight.
if you will.
Breakup sex.
The last kiss goodnight. Yeah.
God
It was,
damn,
it
bro.
was so, it was bizarre. Like tears were rolling down our cheeks, and they were like, as we're kissing. And then she, you know, we start talking, and it's like, well, what are you going to do now? Where are you going to live? And I was like, I don't know. What are you going to do for work? And I made a cardinal mistake. She had just started a new business selling vintage furniture, and it was going well. And she taught me all the ins and outs because I learned how to do it. We had to get that business up and running before I went away. So I knew how to do it. And I looked at her and said, you know, I could start a vintage furniture business, direct competition with this thing.
Wow. From prison?
He was barely holding her. From when I got out. When I got out, I was like, that's, you know, that's what I could do. And it was just like, wrong answer.
And how long?
Again, Seth, I could ask something right after you.
How long had you been down for when this was going on, Craig?
That's my one question. Yeah.
Let's see, that was December 22nd. So it was only it was just over 4 months.
4 months, yeah.
It was just
And how
over
long did
4
you
months
have?
that I had been down.
And how long did you have?
I had 2 years.
2?
Yeah.
2-year sentence. Yeah, 2-year sentence.
So my question is, did she come back? Did she try to get back to you, get back with you once you reposition your life?
Nope.
No?
No, not at all.
Interesting.
I haven't spoken to her in probably 4 or 5 years.
She deserves it. Never mind anyway.
You feel I mean, you went away. You were not going to be down for that long. She certainly,
Exactly.
if she loved you,
Good riddance.
You know, mates can last a year and a half, you know, waiting it out. She didn't do it. I mean, maybe she was never, you know, is in love with you, or to get, you know, whatever. Maybe there were other issues, none of our business. But do you not feel bitter that she sort of deserted you?
So at the beginning, I thought I deserved it. I thought I deserved it. And it wasn't until several years later where I allowed myself to get really angry about it. And now I'm at the point where I understand why she did it. I lied to her. You know, she didn't know exactly what I was doing with my fraud, but she knew I was doing something. And she said, is this okay? And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I lied to her for, you know, about 10 months. I lied for 10 months. And that was it. That's on
not
me.
a hanging crime, though. You know,
it's still crime, Richard.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
You know,
white crime.
Yeah, Richard.
Black crime. Crime is crime to the feds.
So Richard, here's where my story picks up. So Craig and his wife were at my house several times, and they leave, and my wife looks at me and says to me, "She's not sticking around."
Women know.
Yeah.
Women know.
Yeah.
There was a guy. This will lighten this space up a little bit, but in the same thing of relationships.
That's your job, Seth.
Let's keep it dark. Let's keep it dark, Steph. Come on. This is the yard.
So in county jail, which I did a year in county, it was hell, right? It's terrible. It's the worst. Like, you know, it's just a shit show and it's terrible. But every Saturday night, there was this one dude on the tier that would go, "It's Saturday night. Do you know where your woman's at?" And you could just feel the air.
Tension. It's like, mother, I'm gonna kill you.
Everybody's like, "Oh God." No.
But we can't listen. We can't as men, we can't give women a bad rap. Not all women will desert you in prison.
Nope.
Some women are loyal, faithful, and will stick by you because they love you and they care for you. So salute to all those women that stuck by me when I was locked up. And especially the one
How many
now.
women were sitting by you?
I mean, because I did multiple. I had multiple women in multiple times of my incarceration.
Oh, what a
Oh.
dog.
Those that stuck by me, great. But my last one that really stuck by me and loved me and held me down, I salute you.
So that's
Real.
that's why you're divine.
Gotta be, man.
Gotta be.
He's
Gotta
gotta
be.
come. All right. So I want to do a lightning round now
Mhm.
of questions, and this is for Seth and Divine as well as Jeff and Craig. Okay. So I want you to tell me the first thing that pops into your head when I ask you this question. Okay. And please don't make this a long.
Drawn out.
The opposite of lightning.
It's not a lightning. It's just sort of like a long.
Visitation.
drizzle.
Keyword is like,
Right. Okay. So we're going to move fast here. And Jeff, the funniest person you met in prison.
Oh, it was Mark Hanna for sure.
Okay. Okay. I know who he is. Craig, who was your funniest guy? Why was he so funny?
Sal, just because he was this 6'4", 270-pound monster who he farted nonstop. It was ridiculous.
Okay.
He just made jokes about everything.
What's funnier than that? I ask you. Seth, you're funniest.
There's a bunch of funny people, and shout out to all the funny prison folks for sure. One guy stood out that I can think of right now. We called him Puerto Rico, and he was probably 5'3", but just had a booming voice and was like always yapping his mouth and like love hoops, and so it was a hilarious.
Okay, Puerto Rico. What about you, D?
Yo, I met this guy when I was in Fairton, down south in Florida, and he was just like, he was like a real like lanky guy, about 7 feet tall, and he was like real weird. You know, no one really rocked with him, but I used to like him because he was just so weird. And he used to say this word ornery. I'm like, what the fuck does ornery mean? He's like, I'm ornery. I'm like, the fuck is ornery?
That's a word.
I had to look this word up to understand what the fuck ornery meant.
Ornery.
But yo, he was a character, man.
All right. Jeff.
Hold on, Richard. You got to do yours too. Hold on.
Yeah.
Rich,
You
come on,
ain't
man.
getting off the hook on
You're
this.
excluded.
Hold on.
Shit.
Bubba. It was Bubba.
Who was the funniest guy? The funniest guy was this guy, this guy was black. He was 6'10", probably, weighed about 380 pounds.
Damn.
Scariest guy I ever saw. And he came up to me and, you know, like I guess he did with a lot of the new people who show up. And he came up to me, this little white kid, and he looks me up and down and he gets in my face. And then he reaches up with his hand and he starts tickling my stomach. And he cracks up and walks away.
What the what?
And he was just a funny, crazy, completely the gentlest guy in the world. And he just liked freaking people
He's
out.
like Mr. Coffee. Green Mile.
Yeah, Jeff. What is the one thing that you should never do in prison?
Should never show anybody disrespect.
Okay,
Ooh,
good one. Craig?
great.
Jeff took a really good one. I'm going to go with don't walk on somebody's freshly mopped floors.
Good one.
Oh, that's beef.
Again, a sign of
That's murder beef.
Seth?
Yeah, I think getting other people's business is not your business.
Okay. Divine?
Don't get undressed before you go to the shower.
That would have been my choice too. You beat me to it. Also, don't reach over someone's tray in the cafeteria.
Something
to
else
grab
Richard
the
did.
Salt.
Something else
Again.
Richard did from experience.
It's a whole respect thing.
Yeah.
Also, don't be sarcastic in prison.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
something else Richard did. There's 3 strikes, he's out.
I know. I'm lucky I got out of there alive.
And definitely do not call anybody a bitch. Don't do it.
Nope.
Yeah, not as a joke.
Don't do it.
Nope.
Well, and don't threaten to tell on anyone either.
Oh,
That was-
And don't threaten to do something to somebody and don't do it.
Who are you gonna tell?
I know.
Oh, they tell in prison.
Yeah.
All right.
Who
last-
are you gonna tell? You're gonna tell the goddamn lieutenant. Slip
You're
notes under his
tell
door.
the-
at night.
gonna go if you're gonna tell, you're going into protective custody. That's what's
Yeah,
going
them
on.
slips under the door. Them slips
Oh,
come
yeah.
under the door
Oh,
crazy.
yeah. Oh,
All
yeah.
right. Last question in this so entertaining lightning round. Jeff, what is the one thing that would most surprise people about prison?
That it's a community in there, that it's really a family.
True.
That would be surprising. Craig?
That there are some amazingly intelligent, compassionate, and nice people there.
Mm.
Seth?
Same. The bond that's created amongst people that have gone through the criminal justice system is stronger than any I've ever,
Mm.
been a part of, in my life. So.
D?
You have some of the top microwave cooks in the world. Oh, besides that, actually,
That's a
besides
good
that,
one.
That's a good one.
it's just that, no matter what someone's crime is, like the humanity, like shines, and you see the humanity in people when you're locked up, regardless, because we're all in the same condition, the same situation, regardless if you had $1 million in the street or you had $10 in the street.
Yeah. I mean,
A great equalizer.
these are like really great answers and really just a lot of heart and soul in them.
Mhm.
For me, it's sort of, I was just so often struck by how much sadness there was, that people, not for me, but for other people's lives
Yeah.
and what they were dealing with and, the tragedies and the unfairnesses. I mean, it's upsetting for me just to think about it. The world is a sad place. And a lot of times, the saddest people end up breaking the law for a variety of reasons, out of desperation, out of having no other choice.
And Richard, on the other end of the spectrum, the joy and the happiness that was found there,
Yeah,
despite the
True.
pain and sorrow.
true.
Yep.
The sadness.
I don't remember laughing so hard either.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
No.
Me
Yeah.
either.
That's what the yard for real.
Yeah, for real.
We're being-
Real prison
this is-
experience.
this is the truth. All right, we have a few minutes left, and both Jeff and Craig are doing really great things. It strikes me constantly how people go through the criminal justice system, go through the hell of prison, and when they get out, instead of beating a path as far away as they can get from that, from that world, from that life, from those people, instead feel a need and a honor and a just sort of a compunction to just work within it and bring value to it and pay it forward. And, I know that's true here. Jeff, tell everybody what you're up to.
Well, as of May 5th of this year, my law license is reinstated. So
Congrats.
thank you. So I've opened up a law firm in Manhattan, and I'm practicing law again, mostly for justice impacted people, I imagine. I mean, probably everybody who I'm representing is in crisis of some sort or another. For the last 10 years, we've had a ministry for white collar criminals and their families, but it wasn't exclusive because I also ran a nonprofit, which you know about, Richard, in Connecticut, that helped out all kinds of people on the margins. So my day all day long is either helping people, ministering to them one way or another, or helping them out as a lawyer. And I'm only doing the lawyer thing again for 6 weeks now, so it's not like I got my arms really wrapped around how that's all going to go. but I do feel like I'm blessed by God, you know, like not many people get this, a second chance to do what they love and what their best skill set is.
Yeah.
And also, I just want to go back to the first thing that happened here. I went to prison for SBA loan fraud. And I don't know anybody else in the country who's a lawyer who went to prison for SBA loan fraud.
Never.
But right, it just doesn't happen. But the thing is that I identify, you know, with people who are going through the problem. You know, it's like I no longer identify as a lawyer who's like trying to make money from people who are hurting.
Yeah.
You know, now I identify as people with people who are going through that problem, and there's going to be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people prosecuted over the next 5 years who fell into exactly what you talked about in your meditation in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, some people intentionally and some people just wandered in.
Yeah.
And
Jeff,
and
it's super exciting. I just got to say this to add on to that, like, and whoever's watching or whatever, like, you getting your license back to practice law after going through the system is huge on a lot of different levels. I know it's a lot of hoops to jump through and things like that. So, you know, congrats, you know, thank you for going through those hoops. Your ability to now navigate the system after going through it is going to impact so many people's lives. And that's super exciting.
It could be done.
Exactly.
The inspiration
For sure.
that
Absolutely.
there is a second chance and there's redemption, like Divine talked about before. So congratulations, and
absolutely
for all of the good stuff that you've done and will continue, no doubt, doing.
And I have a personal belief that, like, you know, just like when, you know, police officers have tasers, right? They have to get tased before they are allowed to use the taser. And you know, I also think that if you're going to practice law, part of being, you know, especially criminal law, part of passing the bar is you got a week. You know, you got to go down for a week. Like, part of your day. So
it's like
Brubaker.
Exactly.
Like Brubaker. Yeah. So, you know, in this case, passing the bars on the door in the
exactly. You got to eat the food you're serving.
Bar 1 and bar 2.
Craig, great book, bestseller.
Yeah.
You're working with all types of people. Tell us what you're up to.
So this kind of ties back to what Seth was asking me earlier and what Divine was saying earlier as well, is that I knew I had to give meaning to the suffering. And I knew that I could utilize my story as the tool to do that. And that's where the book came from. And that's where my TEDx came from. And that's also where my coaching grew from. So I call myself a reinvention architect, and I help people who want to reinvent their lives, whether they have been through what we've been through and, you know, need that reinvention, or I have a lot of clients who've never done anything wrong, but just are not happy with their life. Yeah. They're just not fulfilled. They're not feeling that joy. They're stuck in the cube. They're doing that same thing. And I help them connect with what matters in their life, what's really important. And I find this crazy because my crime was finance, you know, it was all finance. So was Jeff's, Richard, it's, you know, so was yours. But I'm learning that it's not money that everybody's after. It's that joy and fulfillment. And working with people to connect with that is just so, it's just so rewarding. And it's just, it's like, it's amazing to do. To be able to write and to share my story of certain, you know, in service of people.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure all of us have had the experience. People ask, what do you regret? Would you have done it differently? And yeah, I mean, I regret lies. I regret cheating people, but I also recognize that everything that I've done brought me to here today, you know, talking to you.
Yeah.
Learning what I learned, trying to help people as we do. I knew this would be I knew I'd had fun tonight, which anytime I'm with Jeff, I have fun. but I knew you guys have a lot of soul and a lot to share, and that you're, if nothing else, just deeply honest.
Mhm.
So thank you for opening your hearts and being honest. And I always feel that about Seth and Divine, you know, when you guys sort of let go, it really just sort of blows me away. We are coming to the end of another episode of The Yard. We thank everybody for joining us. We ask everybody, number one, please follow us. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. Adrian will have a screen up shortly where you can do that. Please tell your friends about us and about The Yard and about Jeff and about Craig, and read Craig's book, which we have posted here. I think you'll really, really enjoy it and get a lot out of it. And, you know, if you need a great lawyer because you're in trouble in New York, you know, I got news for you. Jeff would be a guy I would turn to, because he's going to throw his heart and soul into anything he does. We need to help each other. You know, we're not animals. We're not bad people. We're not monsters. We made mistakes. We regret it. We've tried to make amends. And now we're here trying to help other people. You know, that's our obligation. That's our karma to do. And indeed, we do it like so many other people who have gone through this. Please download our app, Commissary Club. It's available for Android or iOS. And certainly, please let people in your networks know if they need help with jobs. Go to 70millionjobs.com, download the app. And we can't help everybody, but we do try to help everybody. We've been very fortunate recently. We're a for-profit business. We aim to make a lot of money so we can keep growing and help more people. We have a crowdfund campaign that's almost coming to an end on republic.co. So if you want to learn more about us, I think people are going to make a great deal of money. We are the sole for-profit player in reentry, and it's a hot space. Somebody's going to acquire us. We've already turned down offers. So I think there's money to be made here, and there's a lot of help and souls to help. You know, we desperately want to short circuit the pernicious cycle of recidivism that destroys lives and decimates families, and, you know, runs roughshod over communities. So, you know, that's what we're here for. And we're thrilled and honored to be joined by Craig and Jeff, who share our core beliefs. Thank you so much. Please come back next time. Please connect with one another. When I shut up, you can continue chatting and meeting each other. Take advantage of it. And everybody, let's be good to one another. If we're not helping each other, nobody's going to help us. So Dee, Seth, Craig, Jeff, thank you. Good night. Be safe. Much peace and love to everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Joe.
Richard,
Jeff,
Divine,
Chris.
Love and
Seth.
blessings,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank
Thank you
you,
for
guys.
joining.
Bless.
Craig,
God bless
Jeff.
you all.
God
Thank you.
bless you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Joe.
Night.
Have a great night.